"You taped a violation notice? To a boat?" That was the line that left my mouth, in a low growl as the early morning breeze rattled. The paper Patricia had plastered to my siding. A bright orange HOA ticket flapping against the hull like some desperate flag of suburban conquest. My coffee was still steaming in one hand, but the sight was enough to sober me faster than any caffeine ever could. I tore it free, the tape screeching, and read the words with growing disbelief. Illegally moored on community property waters. Waters. The absurdity of it nearly made me laugh, except I knew exactly who was behind it. Patricia, our HOA president, self-declared guardian of the cul-de-sac, had clearly expanded her jurisdiction to the lake, and apparently she'd invented something called the Dock Enforcement Squad, a squad of neighbors with clipboards, and, judging by the cheap laminates tucked into the corner of the paper, some kind of badge. I should have tossed the whole thing in the water, let it drift away like the nonsense it was, but instead I stood there on the dock, staring at it and thought, this woman has no idea who she's playing with. See, Patricia loved her bylaws the way some people loved their children. Every meeting, she'd clutch that binder, flipping through dog-eared pages, quoting fines and restrictions with the cadence of a preacher. I'd been targeted before my mailbox light was allegedly too bright, my recycling bins not uniform in color. I'd paid my dues, literally and figuratively, because it wasn't worth the fight. But this was different. This was my home. My houseboat wasn't some quirky weekend escape. It was the place I slept, ate, and kept my boots by the door. And Patricia had just taped her fantasy of control directly to it. I took the notice inside, laying it on the kitchen counter. The boat swayed gently beneath my feet, wood creaking with a rhythm I'd long since stopped noticing. I poured the rest of my coffee down the sink, muttering to myself, "Dock Enforcement Squad, give me a break." By the time I walked up to the HOA office, a converted pool house with peeling white paint the sun had burned away the morning mist, I found Patricia already there, perched behind a folding table with her signature navy skirt suit, pearls catching the light like she thought she was testifying before Congress instead of presiding over a neighborhood with 27 homes. Two of her loyal lieutenants, Mark and Denise, flanked her with clipboards at the ready. "Well," Patricia said as I stepped inside, "I trust you've seen your citation?" "Seen it? Patricia, you taped it to the side of my boat. Half the lake's seen it." Denise smirked. "Community property waters are under HOA jurisdiction." "Community property waters," I repeated, leaning forward on the table. "That's not in the bylaws." Patricia gave me the smile I'd seen her use on every contractor, delivery driver, or unfortunate teenager caught fishing off the dock. Sweet on the surface, sharpened underneath. "Not yet, but the board has the authority to establish enforcement subcommittees. Dock Enforcement Squad is one of them. You're in violation, and frankly, your houseboat sets a terrible precedent. We can't have everyone dragging floating shacks onto the lake." "Floating shack?" I said, my voice tightening. "That floating shack has a mortgage, Patricia." Mark tapped his clipboard. "We're just doing our job, sir." That word "sir" had an edge to it, like he thought wearing a polo with the HOA logo suddenly made him a deputy. I bit my tongue, hard, because part of me wanted to pull out the badge I carried every single day. The real one. But no, not yet. Let them play pretend. I left the meeting without another word, the echo of Patricia's heels clicking on the concrete behind me as she called, "You'll be fined daily until compliance." Back on the dock, the neighborhood seemed to hum with the gossip. Curtains twitched. A neighbor with a golden retriever gave me a sympathetic shrug but didn't stop walking. That's the thing about HOA drama people love to watch, but no one dares to step in. I sat on the edge of my boat, watching ripples spread across the water, and felt the weight of it pressing down. This wasn't just another mailbox citation. Patricia was trying to push me out. The mini-climax came that evening, when I returned from work to find a second notice taped higher this time, almost defiantly, right beside my front window. Bold red letters declared, "Final warning. My jaw clenched so tight it ached. Patricia had escalated in less than 12 hours, as if daring me to fight back. I tore it down, crushed it in my fist, and stood there under the soft glow of the dock lights, my reflection staring back at me from the black water. She thought she'd cornered me with her fake squad, her laminated authority, her little empire of rules. But what Patricia didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had an authority she couldn't dream of matching. And sooner or later I was going to make that very clear. For now, I let the crumpled notice fall into the trash can by my door. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Patricia was already planning her next move, sharpening her claws for the fight she thought she was winning. The night settled in, cicadas buzzing from the trees, the lake lapping at the wooden posts. I looked out across the water and whispered to myself, "She has no idea what she's started." "Seize it. Patricia, this isn't the Spanish Armada, it's a houseboat." That was the line I hurled across the water as Patricia, pearls glinting in the afternoon sun, raised her laminated card like it was a warrant signed by the president. Behind her, 6 HOA volunteers in crisp matching polos marched in formation down the dock, whistles blasting like a middle school gym class gone rogue. Their clipboards bobbed in rhythm with every step. It would have been funny if it weren't aimed squarely at me. The scene looked like some absurd suburban militia. Polyester polos, khaki shorts, sneakers squeaking against weathered planks. They shouted words like trespassing and illegal anchorage, each syllable bouncing off the lake's surface. My boat swayed with their footsteps, and for the first time since this nonsense started, I felt the pressure of neighbors gathering on shore, arms folded, phones out, waiting to see if the houseboat guy was finally about to be sunk. It all began with Patricia's escalation after those bright orange violation slips. Most presidents would have cooled down when challenged. Patricia doubled down. At the last HOA board meeting, she unveiled what she called the Dock Enforcement Initiative. "We have laws on land," she declared, "and now order on water." She unveiled laminated HOA Police cards, each one printed on glossy cardstock, complete with gold stars like a kindergarten reward chart. Mark and Denise nearly applauded. I sat there biting my tongue, because if I laughed out loud, I might never stop. Now, standing at the bow of my boat, I watched as the initiative marched to life. Patricia led her so-called patrol with the poise of a general. "Attention," she barked, her voice slicing through the humid afternoon. The whistleblowers went silent. "This vessel is in violation of community docking bylaws. Effective immediately, it is subject to seizure by the Homeowners Association." I raised my brows. "By seizure, you mean what, exactly? You plan on dragging me out by the anchor rope?" Mark puffed up his chest. "We're authorized to tow." "That did it," I laughed. Not the polite, keep-it-down kind, but a full-bodied laugh that rolled across the water. "With what, Mark? Your minivan? Gonna hitch my hull to the back of your Kia?" The neighbors chuckled quietly from the shoreline, but Patricia's glare shut them down fast. She adjusted her pearls as if they were part of the uniform and snapped back, "You may mock us, but the HOA has authority. Every day you resist, fines will double, and if you force our hand, we will remove this vessel." I stepped closer to the dock, my shadow stretching long across the planks. "Patricia, there's no line in the bylaws about water rights. Not a single one. You're making this up as you go." Denise tapped her clipboard. "Amendments are pending." "Pending," I repeated, shaking my head, "which means they don't exist yet." The patrol shuffled uneasily, their sneakers scuffing as their leader's voice lost some of its thunder. But Patricia didn't back down. She leaned in, voice low but sharp, like a knife sliding between ribs. "If you think you're above the rules, you're wrong. This boat sends a message of lawlessness. Today, it ends." And with that, she motioned forward 2 volunteers teenagers roped into service, probably bribed with free pool passes. They held coils of rope, fumbling nervously, clearly unprepared to board a boat and tow it anywhere. The crowd murmured louder now, cell phones capturing every second. The air was thick with lake water and the faint whiff of sunscreen, but beneath it all was the smell of drama, ripe and electric. I crossed my arms, planted my feet, and let silence hang. Every instinct in me wanted to flash my real badge, shut this circus down in seconds. But another part of me, the patient part that had dealt with drunks, liars, and the occasional hothead behind a steering wheel, told me to let it play out. Patricia was writing her own downfall with every overblown order. "Step aside," she commanded, signaling the teenagers forward. They hesitated, their eyes flicking between me and Patricia. I could see the doubt creeping in, the realization that maybe this wasn't just a game of HOA make-believe. One muttered, Are we actually allowed to do this?" Patricia snapped, "Yes, you're acting under my authority." That was the moment the patrol fractured. The crowd's whispers turned into chuckles, a few even outright laughs. Mark's whistle slipped from his hand and clattered against the dock. Patricia's face flushed crimson, her authority unraveling in real time. But she didn't give up. Her voice rose again, shrill now, trying to regain control. "If you don't move this boat voluntarily, I will return tomorrow with the board and we will seize it ourselves." And there it was, the mic drop threat, the promise of an escalation that everyone knew she couldn't back up. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, phones held higher, ready to film the showdown Patricia had just scheduled for sunrise. I leaned casually on the railing, letting the tension simmer. "Then I guess I'll see you at dawn." The words settled over the dock like storm clouds, heavy and electric. Patricia's lips tightened into a smile too stiff to be genuine, and she spun on her heel, her so-called patrol following behind, scattered and embarrassed. The dock creaked with their retreat, but their promise lingered like smoke. I stood there long after they left, the lake calm again, but my mind anything but. Patricia had just drawn her battle lines, and tomorrow morning she was coming for my houseboat with her full suburban navy. "Patricia," I said, my voice steady as I pulled the leather case from my pocket, "this is what a real badge looks like." For a heartbeat, the dock fell silent. The early morning sun glinted off the metal, a flash of silver that cut through the humid air like a blade. Whistles stilled, clipboards drooped. Even the gulls circling overhead seemed to pause their cackling. Patricia's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, as if she'd swallowed every speech she'd rehearsed the night before. I hadn't planned to play my hand so soon, but Patricia had forced it. She came marching down the dock at sunrise, clipboard clutched in one hand, her laminated HOA Police card raised high in the other. Behind her trailed the so-called dock enforcement squad, though they looked more like a group of reluctant kids at summer camp than enforcers of the law. Matching polos, sneakers squeaking against damp wood, eyes darting nervously toward me. The neighbors had gathered again, wrapped in hoodies and coffee cups, ready for the promised showdown. "Evacuate immediately," Patricia barked, breathless from the walk. She slapped the clipboard against her palm for emphasis. "This boat is seized under the authority of the Homeowners Association. If you do not vacate, we will remove you ourselves." I almost let her keep going. Part of me wanted to see just how far she would drag this circus act. But when she motioned two of her officers forward with ropes, I knew it was time. There are lines you don't let people cross, and impersonating law enforcement, even if it's wrapped in suburban delusion, was one of them. That's when I reached into my jacket pocket, slow and deliberate. The crowd leaned in. The ropes froze midair, and I said the words that cracked Patricia's empire. "This is what a real badge looks like." Gasps rippled across the dock. A few cell phones dropped in surprise, thudding against wood. Mark, Patricia's most loyal lieutenant, turned pale, his whistle dangling uselessly from his neck. Denise looked down at her clipboard as if it might shield her from reality. Patricia tried to recover. This isn't relevant," she sputtered. "You're a resident, not on duty. The HOA has its own enforcement rights." Wrong, I cut her off, my voice low but carrying. You've been impersonating law enforcement. That card you wave around, the uniforms, the threats to seize property that's not just nonsense, Patricia. That's a crime, a very real one. The crowd murmured louder now, the tension snapping like dry twigs underfoot. I could smell the lake water mixing with the sharp tang of fresh coffee from the spectators, a strange cocktail of morning routine and high drama. Patricia's cheeks flamed red, but her words faltered. Mark stepped in, his voice cracking. We were just following Patricia's direction. It's community safety. I held his gaze. Community safety doesn't come from pretending to be police. You want to write memos about trash bins or lawn heights? Fine. But when you start handing out fake citations, threatening seizures, you've crossed a line. Patricia's pearl necklace glimmered in the sun as she squared her shoulders. You're twisting this. The board approved. No, I said, letting the silence stretch. The board doesn't have that power, and everyone here knows it. The weight of the badge in my palm steadied me, its cool metal a reminder of the oath I'd actually taken. Across the dock, I saw recognition dawning on faces. Neighbors who once watched quietly now nodded. Someone whispered, "She can't do that, can she?" Another muttered, "I knew she'd gone too far." The mini-climax came when one of the teenagers Patricia had roped into her patrol finally spoke. His voice was quiet but clear. "Are we going to get in trouble for this?" His question sliced through the morning fog like a warning bell. Patricia whipped around, eyes blazing, but the damage was done. Doubt had spread. The squad was unraveling. I slipped the badge back into my pocket, leaving its presence hanging in the air like thunder after lightning. "Go home," I said softly, not to Patricia, but to the squad. "This isn't your fight. Don't let her drag you down with her." And one by one they peeled away. Mark left first, then Denise, then the teenagers, tossing their ropes onto the dock. Phones kept rolling, capturing every defection, every retreat. The mighty dock enforcement squad dissolved in less than a minute, leaving only Patricia standing there, her heels clicking against the planks as she turned back to me. Her voice wavered, but the stubbornness was still there. "This isn't over. You think you can embarrass me in front of the board, in front of the community? You'll regret this." I leaned against the railing of my boat, calm now, almost amused. "Patricia, you've been running this place like your personal kingdom. But queens don't stay on the throne forever. Sometimes they sink." Her jaw tightened, eyes flashing with something I couldn't quite place: fear, anger, maybe both. She spun on her heel, storming back up the dock, but not before shouting to the crowd, "Emergency meeting tonight. The board will decide his fate." The words echoed over the water, leaving a bitter taste in the air. Neighbors exchanged looks, half eager, half uneasy, as if they couldn't decide whether to pity Patricia or sharpen their knives for her. I stayed there, watching her retreat until she vanished into the parking lot, her empire visibly crumbling with each step. But her parting threat hung heavy. Because if Patricia was cornered now, I knew she wasn't going down quietly.